Jon Martin-Crawford is a former program participant at the Family Foundation School, where he spent almost 2 years as a teenager. John is currently working towards a double master's in English and secondary education, and is also working with the Community Alliance for Ethical Treatment of Youth, hoping to shed light on the troubled teen industry.
First, I would like to thank the chairman and the committee for the opportunity to present my side of this story. After watching the hearing back in October, I was truly inspired by the clear case of morality that brought together both sides of the aisle on this discussion. We've been called noisy complainers, and we've been called manipulating troublemakers, but after 10 years, I finally have my chance to speak. My name's Jon Martin-Crawford, and I was locked up in the NATSAP-affiliated program, the Family Foundation School in Hancock, New York, from '95 to '97. My life at home was anything but stable, causing me to seek my own release from it all. I created a persona for myself, the troublemaker at school, always looking for attention I didn't get at home. I was involved in drugs by the age of 13. I was lost, constantly in fights, legal run-ins, and more. My parents were at wit's end. My only release was my music, my writing, and my skateboarding. After being expelled from public school and one private school for marijuana use and writing an underground newspaper, my parents were told to send me to the family shortly thereafter, thinking it would give me what I needed. Once I arrived at the family, I knew I was there until I was 18. I went through what seems like the ritualistic stripping of identity almost all of us survivors faced. I was stripped, my clothes were taken and thrown away, my music, my art, my skateboard, all destroyed. What I didn't have with me, my parents were told to destroy as well. I was left with only a letter from my mother for the next 3 months. I'd been to some inpatient settings before, but this one was different. Other places allowed phone calls, mail, peer communication. Here I wasn't even allowed to call home the first few months. Even after that, I only got one phone call home a week, nothing more, no access to CPS. Here I was only allowed to talk to staff and kids that had been there more than 6 months. I was told I was denying the extent of my drug use, and I was confused as to just how I would get better enough to see my family. I sat, watched, and learned to play the game of lies necessary to get privileges and eventually get out. I was lucky and figured these rules out quickly enough not to endure what I saw many kids endure, but I witnessed it all, including staff punching students in the face while restraining, not once, but several times. Typical restraint procedures were wrapping kids up in duct tape and blankets. Kids were not let out of this wrap even to use the bathroom, for feminine hygiene, or just to move around a little bit and extend their limbs. Restraints were not only done by faculty, but students as well. Usually this was even more brutal and was often done in front of all other students to show what will happen if you act out. Kids were forced to eat food they were allergic to and keep eating even if vomiting as a result. We were forced to attend daily religious services and AA meetings and share personal stories with the outside world. Kids as young as 12 being taken out of school to carry out pointless manual labor, such as shovel manure, carry wheelbarrows of rocks, sweeping the roof, shoveling, numerous things for days on end. When kids tried to run away, it was again not only staff but students told to chase, tackle, restrain, and bring them back. Many things were heard from staff, berating kids with high levels of verbal abuse, often of a highly derogatory and sexual nature, at times regarding sexual orientation. An admitted sex addict was one of the high-up faculty and counselors, as well as a dorm monitor living above the boys' dorm. The rules I learned to avoid many of these problems were as follows. I made up a horrible past to cure myself of. Our moral inventory was nearly always fabricated to make our problems seem worse and the program seem like salvation. Tell on yourself and your peers for things that you may have never done to give the illusion that you're getting better and working the program. If you have certain gifts, you can find a way to skate by. For me, I was their golden boy with my pen, and at my graduation speech, as well as for others, our speeches were used as propaganda as part of the family day for all the parents to hear their message of goodwill. Under no circumstances were we to tell our parents or prospective parents the truth about what we saw. I was fortunate enough to go home after a while, but I quickly learned that if I told my parents the truth about what I saw, I would only be explained as a manipulation and lose more privileges. While I had been fortunate enough to miss out on these horrors personally, I gave many tours to prospective parents, always omitting the details of restraints, punishments, and any lack of communication against the abuses that took place. As a dorm leader, I was told to wake up one of the kids in my dorm with the lamp that only had a floodlight as a bulb, burning his retinas. I participated in the restraining and took part in the barrage of verbal attacks, just as did many of my peers. I am not proud of this, but we had no choice. If we did not conform, we were being negative and subjected to the same treatment and lack of privileges as everyone else. Once I left, I saw that I was now in the real world with real problems again, and the school had never helped me with those problems. After nightmares of the family led to a relapse, I was soon out of Vassar College and into the military. The training in the military, although viewed by some to be harsh, was a cakewalk compared to the hell endured at the family school. My trust issues were never resolved after leaving the family, and the nightmares remained. Ultimately, these psychological issues and flashbacks led to the need for my discharge from the Army, something I regret to this day. For years, I thought all this was my fault. While the nightmares and anxiety never wore off, getting high at least made it go away again. I will not blame others for my choices or my mistakes. I take responsibility for those. What I blame the family for is stripping me of my childhood. I still have nightmares of being locked up and told I'm ruining my life. I still read their monthly paper of lies and get nauseous remembering what we witnessed. The only thing I can say to temper my disdain for these types of schools, or at least for the family, is this. While the programs, as they are, have little positive effect long term, I do believe that kids in my position need some sort of help. I believe there can be a safe solution, as some staff are genuinely decent and caring people. We need oversight and regulation of these facilities with swift and severe penalties for those who stray from the standards. What must be remembered through all of this is that these success stories that these places put out tend to fall in the 1 to 2 year range after leaving such program and are usually the opinions of parents. A true statistic, of the 25 kids from my graduation class and the one prior to mine, maybe 4 remain sober. While many can now say they live successful lives, it came anywhere between 5 and 10 years after leaving the program and figuring out life on their own with psychiatric help. Unfortunately, this cannot be said for all. The programs are quick to take credit for a successful story and are just as fast to claim that anyone that doesn't make it just didn't work the program. The truth, the nightmares and psychological scars of being dragged from your home to a place in the middle of nowhere, restrained in blankets and duct tape, assaulted verbally and physically, those scars and that trauma never go away. For my friends who have since died from suicide because of the nightmares, or those who still suffer the nightmares, our time and our voice will not be in vain. There comes a time for every man to make amends and right their wrongs. This is a lesson all these programs preach, and it's a lesson they should now follow.